Welcome back to Good Sports for You, where we are talking about good sports for you. And today we are here with our final playoff preview, and we are talking about everyone's favorite AL West division champions. That is your Seattle Mariners. Before we get into it, I want to remind you to like, comment, subscribe, do all those things that you want to do. I really appreciate it. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to talk about my initial gut reactions, then we're going to go over the good, the okay, and then the bad. I'm going to talk about who they have in the field, the rotation, the bullpen, and then I'm going to give my final thoughts, opinions, and predictions. So let's hop right into it. So with this team as a whole, I really love this team. I mean, Cal Raleigh is obviously the main focal point of this squad. He's having one of the best catcher seasons ever, probably the best ever, most home runs ever by a catcher. He's a switch hitting catcher. He's calling the balls and strikes for one of the best rotations in all of baseball. Beyond that, I mean, Julio Rodriguez, obviously, got manning center field, and he's just fantastic. I think the rotation is very, very good. I think the lineup is pretty potent. So as a whole, I'm feeling really good about this team, and I'm loving their chances to make the World Series out of a pretty weak AL. So what's good about this team is we're going to start off on the pitching side of things. They're 5th in WHIP, they're 10th in strikeout per 9, they're 3rd in walks per 9, which leads to a 2nd in strikeout to walk ratio, which is absolutely elite. So they're not allowing base runners on base, and they're limiting the free pass, which is one of the most important things in baseball. Leadoff walks lead to leadoff runs is what they say, And with a guy like George Kirby in your starting rotation, he allows so few walks that obviously this squad as a whole is going to allow very little. So, I mean, that's just absolutely elite any way that you slice it, because if you're not giving up a lot of hits, if you're striking out a lot of guys, that just takes the bat out of the batter's hands, which is what you want to see, especially when your defense isn't great. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later because their defense is not very good. So it's a huge, huge plus to have this pitching staff be punching tickets and not allowing free base runners the way that they are. When you're looking at the hitting side of things, they're 9th in runs scored, they're 9th in walks, they're 3rd in home runs, they're 10th in slugging, and a 10th in OPS. So as a whole, they're a pretty potent lineup. Their home runs are incredible. And I know I've said this in every single one of my videos, but home runs are one of the key indicators for playoff success in making the World Series. So to have so many home runs is what you absolutely love. But this is not a one-dimensional offense at all. I mean, to be 10th in OPS and 9th in walks, it shows that there are multifacets to this game and that it isn't just a home run or bust kind of team, which is what I fear for a lot of these teams that rely on the home run ball. In addition to that, I think it's easy to look at this team and say, well, they have so many home runs because they have Cal Raleigh. The whole entire team is hitting home runs. It's not just him. They have an incredibly powerful lineup, which I love for the postseason and for their chances to make the World Series. In addition, they're 3rd in stolen bases, which I think is really, really good, but I want to talk about base stealing a little bit later because I have more notes about that once we get to the different sections. When you're looking for things that are okay about this team, they're 13th in team ERA, they're 12th in opponent batting average, and they're 14th in home runs allowed. So, I mean, you don't love any of those stats, but what I will say is with the WHIP so good, I am less concerned. It makes me think that, okay, I mean, they're allowing their home run ball a little bit more than they should, obviously. But if they can get that down really at all, you're going to see that ERA plummet because they're not allowing free runners on base. And with a 12th in opponent batting average, that's very good. You're not allowing a ton of hits, which, as I said in their good section, is crucial when your defense is pretty poor. When you're looking at the hitting side of things, they're 20th in batting average and they're 11th in on-base percentage. So like I was saying, it's not an entirely one-dimensional offense, although my concerns do lie in that they're relying a little too much on the 3 true outcomes, which is strikeouts, home runs, and walks. Basically, what are the 3 things that can happen if the defense wasn't even in the field at all? So I think they're relying a little too much on that because, as we're going to get to later, they strike out a lot, but they walk a lot and they hit a lot of home runs. Obviously, you want the batting average to be higher, but I'm not overly concerned with it being 20th just because they have so much pop in the bat and they're still willing to take walks. It's not like they're not taking walks and swinging at everything. I mean, they are swinging at a lot of things, but they're still taking a lot of walks. So it does have a nice, complete offense, but obviously, personally, I would much rather have a single than a walk because a single can always score you more runs than a walk can. Like if you have a runner on second and nobody else on, a walk isn't going to drive him in. There's a good chance that a single can, though. When you're looking at the fielding aspects of things, they're 16th in outs above average, which you don't really love, but I'm not going to get into that too much because I do have more stuff about the fielding. And fielding stuff is always so wonky, so we'll get to that a little bit later. But what I will note is that they're 47 and 43 against teams who are better than 500. So you have a little bit better of a mark than some other teams who have been in the playoffs. like the Guardians and the Cubs. But it's really not ideal. You obviously want that to be better because those are the teams that you're going to be facing. You're going to be facing the good teams. But it is a positive that they at least do have a winning percentage against those teams, but you got to bump that up a little bit for the playoffs. There aren't a lot of bad things about this team, but what I will say is they do have the 6th most strikeouts while hitting, which is a big concern, especially going back to those 3 true outcomes that I talked about. But because I think their offense is so well-rounded as a whole and you have such a good squad that I'm not overly concerned, I'd be a lot more concerned if their batting average was significantly lower. Next, we're going to look at things that are kind of the cleanup around the edges type thing. So this is base running and fielding runs. So when you're looking at base running, they're the 26th worst team in baseball when it comes to base running run value. And I was really surprised by that because they're a pretty good team when it comes to stolen bases. But what I found is that they're the worst team in extra bases taken. So that's things like moving from first to third on a single where you really only should have gotten to second, extending a single to a double, extending a double to a triple. And that's a concern because these things are important in the playoffs. That's how you're going to win ball games. Getting your runners into a more premier scoring position. And also it gets the fans fired up if you're going from first to third on a single, for example. That's going to get everyone in the stadium really excited. So my concern is if you're not doing that, that's definitely a knock on the team. And then also when you're talking about fielding run value, they're also 26th in the league in that, which you don't love at all. Because again, these are the things that really good teams are going to take advantage of. If you're not good at fielding, teams are obviously going to do better. But what I will say is because your pitching staff is so good at striking people out and not allowing free runners on base with your walks being so limited, I am not as concerned because your whip is so low. I mean, you're 5th best in the league when it comes to that. But it's definitely something to mark off and be like, okay, how can we support our pitching staff even better? Next, we're going to look at the position players. Over at catcher, you have Cal Raleigh. I mean, he's having one of, if not the best catching season ever. I don't think there's a lot to say. Switch hitting catcher, hitting 60 home runs, 7.3 WAR, while calling all the balls and strikes for this pitching staff, which has been really phenomenal. I mean, he's going to finish at least second in MVP. He may win it very well. I mean, he definitely has the narrative this year. So, huge plus at the catching position. Over at first base, you have Josh Naylor. Josh Naylor came over in a trade, and he has been absolutely phenomenal for the Mariners this season. He has a 138 OPS plus for the Mariners alone this season, and in addition, he has 30 stolen bases in total, and he's been very, very efficient. He's knowing how to pick his spots, considering he's not a fast runner at all. But he's, like I said, he's picking his spots. He knows when to run, which is a huge, huge plus for this squad. At second base, you have Cole Young, who's a rookie, and there's not a ton to say about him. He's been fine for a rookie second baseman. He has a 78 OPS plus, which you don't love, but the defense has been okay. And at second base, that's really all you can ask for. At third base, you have Eugenio Suarez, who's another one of those trade deadline acquisitions, but he has not been nearly as good as Josh Naylor. He's only at a 94 OPS plus with the Mariners, so definitely a knock at a position where you definitely want a premier bat. At shortstop, you have J.P. Crawford. I think everyone, at least Mariners fans, are familiar with J.P. Crawford's game. He's basically going to be an above-average bat, slightly above average basically every single season. He has a 111 OPS plus this year, and he's going to play some solid defense over at shortstop, and that's what he's done again. I mean, he's been a cornerstone for this Mariners team for the past 5 years or so. So, I mean, you just love him to have that experience and being that clubhouse guy. Over in left field, you're going to have Randy Arozarena. I mean, I love Randy. He's one of my favorite players. He's been having a decent season this year with a 119 OPS plus, but what I will say is that he struggled recently. In September, he had an OPS below 600. But none of that matters for Randy Arozarena because he is that guy in the playoffs. I mean, everyone remembers 2020 where he had the best playoffs ever. He is that dude when October comes around, so I'm not worried about him at all. And honestly, I could see him taking him all the way just because of Randy. Over in center field, you have another one of my favorite players, Julio Rodriguez. He's been having another awesome season. He's so good. He's so consistent. I made a whole entire video about him. He doesn't get enough love. He's having another 30-30 season. He has 6.8 WAR. He has an OPS at 128. I mean, he's just so good. He's so consistent. He's a great bat. He's good at running the bases. He's a good defender. He's everything you want in a cornerstone franchise piece center fielder, and he has been that for them year in and year out. And then over at right field, you're going to have Dominic Canzone, who's been having a really nice season. And honestly, I'm not familiar with his game at all, but he has a 142 OPS plus. So you love that over there. Right field, though, I will say has been split a little bit more. Left field and center field have been pretty consistently Randy and Julio. But right field, you also got some Victor Robles mixed in there too. At DH, you have Jorge Polanco, and he's been really good all season long. He has a 134 OPS plus. He can also run some second base, but the defense just quite isn't as there as it is with Cole Young. So what I will say is that DH, you really love him in that position. When you're looking at the bench, you have your backup catcher in Mitch Garver, and as backup catchers go, he's fine. But I think it's important to at least have one on the roster because Cal Raleigh, like those knees day in and day out, is absolutely brutal. In backup in the outfield, you're going to have Victor Robles and Luke Raley. They're both decent enough. The stats aren't like jumping off the page where it's like, oh my gosh, this guy, you need to have this bat in the lineup. And then your backup kind of infielder, util guy is going to be Miles Mastrobuoni. And he's been fine. Again, similar thing, kind of a league average bat, but he can play a little bit everywhere, so that positional versatility is a big plus for him. But then you move over to the pitching side of things, and that's honestly where this team really excels, which I was surprised about. I mean, I knew that their pitching staff was good. I didn't realize it was this good. In the starters, you have Bryan Woo, who has a sub-3 ERA this season. You have Luis Castillo, who's rocking a 3.54. And I mean, he's just a quality veteran piece who you love to have in any spot. You have Logan Gilbert, who's another great pitcher, and he has a 3.44 ERA this season. You have George Kirby, who we touched on briefly before, but he has a 4.21 ERA. Not his best in the world, but he does not let walks, which, I mean, control is huge for him. So I think that is big time. So even though the ERA isn't there, so few walks leads for like a really high ceiling in terms of how good of a job that he can do. And then also you have Bryce Miller, who's definitely the 5 in this rotation. He has a 5.68 ERA, which you do not love. And also one big thing to know is that Bryan Woo is currently hurt and his status for the ALDS is uncertain, which I think is a huge knock to this rotation if you're losing your number one guy who's been your ace all season long. But what I will say is that this rotation I think is deep enough where, like I said, you have at least 3 starters who you can definitely rely on outside of Bryan Woo and Luis Castillo and Logan Gilbert and George Kirby. So I mean, if you got those 3 guys who you feel like you have a really good chance to win with, I'm not overly concerned, especially because you're facing this Tigers team who is just not fantastic. When you move over to the bullpen is also very good. You have Andres Munoz, who's been having one of the best seasons for a reliever this entire season. He has 38 saves, and he has an ERA at 1.73. Anytime you see that ERA start with 1 for one of your relievers, you love it, and he has been just absolute nails this season. And then you have Eduard Bazardo, who has a 2.52 ERA. You have Gabe Spire, who has a 2.61. You have Carlos Vargas, who has a 3.97, and you have Matt Brash, who has a 2.47. So, I mean, as a whole, I mean, the bullpen is really strong to back up, like I said, an elite group of starting pitchers. So it's just a really well-constructed team as a whole. When you're looking at this team from top to bottom, it is a very good team. I definitely fell victim of thinking this squad was one-dimensional just because Cal Raleigh's had such a good season. But they have super good secondary stars like Josh Naylor has been there. Julio Rodriguez this season would have been like the MVP of the team any other season, but it just isn't. So you have 2 MVP caliber players. You have all-star caliber players like Randy, like Josh Naylor. Like I said, you got guys that you acquired at the trade deadline, like Eugenio Suarez. You have Josh Naylor. I brought up Josh Naylor 3 times, but he's a big part of this team. That's why I'm doing it. So like it's a complete roster, and they have the intangibles. This is the first team to have won the AL West since 2001. Seattle is hungry for a championship. They want it. I know that T-Mobile is going to be bumping. This is a fun team. Their chemistry is through the roof. My biggest concern is Bryan Woo, and if he's able to come back from injury and when he's able to come back from injury. So like if he's not able to come back until the ALCS, how does that affect things? Speaking of the ALCS, the 2 questions now that I have are, can they make it past the Tigers, and can they make it and potentially win a World Series? I definitely think they can make it past the Tigers. I don't think they should have a problem. Even if Bryan Woo is out, I think that's not a concern. You have 3 pitchers who you can definitely trust. And this Tigers team isn't very solid. I mean, they just squeaked past a Guardians team that has like one of the worst offenses that we've seen out of a playoff squad. I mean, they do have Tarek Skubal, so honestly, I could see the series going 4, but I personally am not concerned with them making it past the Tigers. When you're looking at can they make it and win the World Series, I definitely think they can make it just because the AL is pretty weak. I think that they can definitely beat the Blue Jays or the Yankees. I think the Yankees would be more of a threat to them just because they have Aaron Judge, and Aaron Judge is so good. And now with Cam Schlittler playing as well as he did in his postseason debut, now the pitching rotation is looking a lot better. So they definitely can make the World Series. Can they win the World Series is a little more up in the air. I think that either the Brewers, the Phillies, or the Dodgers would give them a lot more of a challenge, or the Cubs, honestly, would give them a lot more challenge in the World Series. But I would pencil them in as making the World Series, but I don't think that I would having them win it. I think it would be awesome if they did win it. I mean, I think nobody deserves it more than the Mariners, except for maybe the Brewers. Brewers fan, shout out. But this is an absolutely fantastic team that can definitely make a deep run in the playoffs with how good of a lineup they have and their pitching rotation being so solid. But that's all I got for you. Thank you so much for listening. I had a great time talking to you. This has been Good Sports for you, and I love talking good sports with you. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all those things that you need to do, and I'm out. Peace.